Well, hello, 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 hello out there. How's everybody doing? It's everybody's favorite conservative in New York, Christopher Wright, here to present you with another of my momentous sit back and chat videos. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share if you enjoy the content, because as you guys know, YouTube's never going to monetize me. So any support I can get, I appreciate it. And I also, first and foremost, Happy New Year's, everybody out there. Happy New Year's. Happy 2021 to all the patriots out there. I just want to say thank you so much for everything you guys have been doing for me this past year and these past going on 3 years now. You guys have been real supportive from day one, and I appreciate everything you guys have done for me. You guys are the reason why I get out there and get out there and fight and get out and get these videos out there and get out to these events and do what I can because you guys are really just the main reason, and I appreciate everything you've done, and I hope you and your families enjoyed the new year. With that said, let's go on to the topic at hand, and as the topic at hand goes, it is going to be, as you guys see, I'm probably shortening the title, but it's going to be the top 10 reasons to leave the Democratic Party in 2021. Now, this is not everybody's top 10. I understand that. This is more my personal opinion than anything. But I feel I have a strong opinion on it because, I'm a former Democrat myself. I campaigned for Obama in 08. Some of you guys know I was on the dark side of the force. And I think we're at a point now we're no longer at a Republican versus Democrat thing. It's almost like a good versus bad at this point. So I'm just going to be honest with you and let's give you guys my personal top 10 and just go from there. And the first on my list is this. And I got my list here listed down. So I just want to go ahead and skim through. See me looking over. I'm looking at my list. All right. China controls their moves. So, yeah, what I feel when it comes to the Democratic Party, as we're seeing with this current election that's they're attempting to steal the election, as we see. And a big hand in that has been China. And as you guys know, I knew for quite a bit of time, but it's really starting to show now in a really negative way, is China has a lot of control in regards to their country. They have a lot of control in regards to our, the media. They have a lot of, the hand on the mainstream media, including Fox News. They have a lot of hands, lobbyists, lobbyists in a lot of politicians' pockets. That's insane. They control like the government system pretty much. They control the media, and they don't fully control it, but they just have a big part, or it's not majority, of control in very important entities in this country to help run this country. And it's really affecting us. And you're seeing when somebody gets tough on them, like our current president Trump getting tough on the trade deals and everything when it comes to China, how they react. They know they can't strike us back in a military way because, Trump's not going to play around with that. So they don't want to take it to that level. And we have a strong military to do, especially in the Navy Department. So they don't want to go there. So they attack us with, this COVID-19 thing. It's from Wuhan virus, or a Chinese virus, as I like to call it, but I prefer to call it. And that was their way of attacking this country without attacking us physically. And so when it was time for us to stand up and fight, our president did a great job, I feel. But you see a lot of politicians in the mainstream media pretty much just totally took it and ran with it and made it a way bigger issue than what it should have been. And it affected, the economy. It affected our, their GDP. It affected so much that it affected this country with just so many people siding with China. And that to me is number one on my list, is pretty much China controls their moves. And that's a big problem. Number two is they don't have policies, and the ones they do have don't work. And I really truly feel that is the case. They have, I was saying during the 2016, the 4 years that Trump was president, when they were doing the whole Ukraine gate and Russia gate and Stormy Daniels, and every week it was something new. That issue they were having, I was telling people that they were on the left debating me, arguing with me, or more like yelling at me. You know how people on the left are anyways, but they don't like to hear the truth. But anyways, when they were going back and forth with me, they will always, say, oh, Trump's going to be impeached. Trump's going to be gone out of office. And I'm like, you guys need to be focused on policies instead of, just going against Orange Man, the whole Orange Man bad TDS thing. You guys need to start figuring out policies that are going to help the American people, and find a politician in 4 years to run against him with these policies and support them. And they just didn't have any policy. All their policies was using the mainstream media to lie and try to manipulate the public to believe Trump was Hitler, or Trump was, working with Russia and all this crazy stuff. But none of it worked, obviously. The truth eventually came out because of alternative news help. But that is, to me, another issue with another reason to walk away from the Democratic Party. Reason number 3, TDS is real. Yes, TDS is very real. As you guys know, it's no longer like, I remember first time I heard it, I kind of laughed, but I laughed because it was, a truthful joke can be very funny. You know how it is. When what makes a joke really funny is when it has a little truth to it. And when I heard that first, I was like, man, that's pretty funny. But then from that point on, I looked at the left in that kind of that mind frame of, is this a mental disorder in a way? They're dealing with mental issues. And when I saw how they acted, yeah, I seen people on the left completely lose their mind. They see just the red and white hat and they lose it. They don't even know what the hat says or is even a MAGA hat. They just already got their, the hairs are standing on their arms and legs. It's crazy. And like, the only time, I've seen that person I can think of is when I see military people who have PTSD. I'm not trying to compare to, no, trust me, this is not the same comparison. What a soldier does and deals with when it comes to war and everything like that is nowhere near what these leftists deal with when it comes to Trump being president. It's nowhere near. I'm just using it for an example in terms of the reaction they have is they just see the red and white and they just react crazy, to lose their minds. They hear, the national anthem, they're losing their minds, they're taking knees. And it's like, I call it, it's TDS, it's Trump derangement syndrome. It's the orange man bad theory, I like to call it. And it's just they lose their mind just by the name of Trump. Some parts of New York, I'm in Manhattan. When I talk with people about politics in public, I don't care. I say what I want to say, but I say the T word sometimes. I'm about to say the T word. The T word did this, and I do it. It's a joke, but people do get triggered. Just being in New York, I'm not intimidated or fearful. Trust me, you guys know how I get down. But just for the sake of just debating and talking and not having to deal with somebody reacting with TDS in the middle of a restaurant, I just say that just to get the conversation going and I can just talk in public and not have to deal with it. But TDS is definitely real. I've seen people, as you've seen in my events and my rallies I've been to, people lose their minds, arguing with me, threatening me, yelling at me. Things got physical one time when I dealt with Antifa. So it's just, all of this is just because, the whole COVID situation is being handled with the quarantine. All this is TDS. All this is just to hopefully to try to do anything to make Trump look bad or try to find anything to criticize the man on. That's TDS. So number 4 is the utter hypocrisy. Yes, the utter hypocrisy is of the left. I love to say it all the time. You guys see me in my videos all the time. I say the utter hypocrisy of the left. That is so honest, in my opinion. The left, a lot of times I notice with them is what they're pointing and they're blaming you for or accusing you of is what they really do in reality. So, they do this whole thing with, Trump's in bed with Russia and Putin and, they're working together and Putin's strategizing with Trump and all the stuff like that they make up. And then in reality, we come out and see, the Bidens, all over Ukraine and, dealings with Russia and China. And, they're calling people to, Nazis and the Gestapo, like their base and everything like that. And sometimes they're politicians and their media. But then come to find out they're using Gestapo tactics with groups like Antifa to, try to control a narrative, to try to, steal an election. They're help using them in that hand in the physical form. They are just to say the utter hypocrites. They're utter hypocrites. A lot of times when you see them doing, how they're acting, what they're accusing you of is in reality what they're doing behind closed doors. So the utter hypocrisy of the left is just, that's another reason to walk away from the Democratic Party in 2021. And the next one I'm going to talk about is their power over the media and ability to push the narrative. And I kind of just briefly talked about that, but that's, it goes just said right there. They have so much power over the media in terms of the news. And I like to call the news mainstream media. I say mainstream media, it's not just the news, but the news is, of course, when you think media, you think the news first. But they got controls, of course, of the CNNs, MSNBCs, ABCs, NBCs, all of that. And now you're seeing even with Fox News, they are part of the establishment. Now, it's not necessarily they are leftists or they are Democrats, whatever. They're Mr. Murdoch or Ruther Murdoch, the guy who owned Fox. His son is now taking over the company, and he's a leftist. So it obviously shows, and so that's why I think it even affects Fox News now. But the media goes beyond just the news. The media to me is sports. It's Hollywood. It's, kids shows on TV. They have control of everything. You turn the TV on, that's pretty much you're watching leftist control media right there. And it shows by the propaganda they're pushing, the narrative they push, and you see how it affects society. You see there's people out here burning down people's businesses, getting in fights and getting felony charges and trying to steal an election, all this because the media has corrupted them. They've brainwashed them, and it's affected the public. And that's why we got so many, I call them sheeple. But they're really people that are like, they've had that pack mentality to the core, and the media really dictates that. And that's why the goal is to be more independent minded and down the line, like as patriots, patriots, a lot of us all got that mind state, but just in general as a country, man, we need more people thinking for themselves and get away from that sheeple mentality. All right. And then next, I want to talk about is the power over the education system. Now, Now that's we all can see that's going on with when it comes to the left. They have a stronghold over the education system, and that's a real issue. And it goes all the way from kindergarten to college. I mean, if you go to those seeing what's going on in kindergarten now, they're doing I forgot what they call them, but pre-COVID, it was really they were pushing it the transgender story hour, and they had transgenders like twerking for little kids and during story time in kindergarten class, and the left was trying to push it like it's okay, and now they're saying kids and that pre-kindergarten preschool can determine their gender and start using gender pronouns and all that. So it goes all the way to the manipulating children at a very young age, all these things about the kindergarten, all the way now when you look at college and you're seeing the professors pushing a Marxist, communism narrative in college courses. And it seems like independent thought now in college courses is not accepted, where college used to be the place to go for independent thought. People went to college to get in discussions and get in debates. And here's people's points of view. And now if you look at college, that's like the number one place. If you go there, especially with MAGA gear or anything like that, you're gonna hear it's gonna be trouble. And that's most universities across the nation, doesn't matter where you're at. And that's just shows you the power that the left has over the education system, the liberal ran education system, as I talk about it all the time. So that's something that needs to that's another reason to walk away in 2021 from the Democratic Party. Now, this next one is their attack on gender. I want to speak on this. It's I was watching Jerry Seinfeld earlier today. He was doing an interview. And it was, I always like Seinfeld. I was a personal, fan of his, or whatever. But he stays away from politics and he does a pretty good. And when he talked about the whole gender thing, and they asked him like, "What's your stance on gender?" and he just looked at him like, and he's like, without even like hesitating, just answered like, "What are you talking? Like, what's there to talk about? There's a man and there's a woman." They're like, it's like, and he was like so looking at him so basic, like he had almost talked to his reporter like a little kindergartner. Because it's like we had to start to square one. It's like that's just the way we're made. Like we in like my generation. I said I'm 37 years old, just turned 37, as you guys know. When I was younger, that wasn't even a topic to even have. We learned at a certain age about female genitalia, male genitalia, and boy, girl, man, woman. And that was it. That was no questions asked. And the fact that within my lifetime that it's gone from just that basic to what we have now with, they're trying to, tell kids they can determine what gender they are. Like I was talking about earlier with the education system, they can determine their gender at a young age. And, and it's getting to the point now where the government wants to step in and looks like, and, if a kid decides, oh, I feel a boy feels like a girl or a girl feels like a boy, then they can step in and like the parent has no control of the situation. Is where we're heading to that point. And that to me is crazy because we know in society just growing up, especially with kids, they're going to think, they're unicorns. They're going to think they're, NBA stars or movie actors or whatever. Imagination. It's just a kid's imagination. And we know it's just a kid's imagination and to treat like in a kid's imagination. And, but now we're pretty much telling kids that when they use imagination when it comes to their gender, is now that's the truth and that's how they gotta live, and that's going to me affect a lot of people's lives and destroy a lot of people's lives in the future if it keeps going ahead this way. All right, and number 8 we're on. They are not pro-life. I'm sorry, I was looking word a little wrong there, but they are not pro-life. Yep. There's not much that needs to be said here. Either you're about life or you're not, and I am. I believe man isn't here to determine when life begins. That's God's determination. So if people always say, especially the Christians out there, they say, the ones who, got the Democrat ran churches, and that's an issue. That's a whole different topic at hand. They, kind of subjugate to this sometimes. They say, oh, well, a cell, it's, technically not a life. It's very early stages. Then I say to them all the same thing. I say, well, if that's the case, can you create a life? And they look at me like, well, depending on what sex I'm talking to, they say, with the opposite sex, yeah, I can, make a life. A woman is really quick. Women usually go, oh, yeah, I can make a life. And it's like, you can by yourself create a life. And they go, oh, no, I can't. So I'm like, if you can't create a life, who are you to determine when life begins? So since we can't create a life, we shouldn't be able to determine. That's God's, right all the way. I leave it to God. I'm not going to ever say a cell's not a child or a cell is a child. It is what it is. If you want to have an abortion, we're at a point, if you want to have that, go ahead and have it, but not one of my tax dollars should go to it. It should be out of pocket, in my opinion. And I'm sure if it was a good chunk of change, there'll be a lot of people practicing a lot of people out there practicing safe sex a lot better if this pertaining to not having sex at all. So God forbid, right? But anyways, on to the next one, and it is what they've done with COVID. I mean, I'm sorry, I just kind of spoke on this. Their removal of God from the country. If you look at our school system, a lot of schools aren't saying the pledge anymore, and a big part of that is one nation under God. Those words within the pledge. And you see a lot of people left I talk with all the time, they are just anti-Christian. You see at their events how they act, how they carry themselves, and the stuff they were wearing, all black. And I'm not just trying to talk about the person's clothes, but they're masked up. I mean, you can tell when God is not in somebody's life or not a part of a group or entity. And it shows with the Democratic Party, the more radical they are behaving, the more radical they're getting. The more you can tell God's being removed from the picture. And the Bible says nothing new under the sun. And at the end of times, that good would be bad and bad would be good. And a lot of times I look at the Democratic Party, one of the reasons why I personally had to step away was I saw them just going negative, more and more negative, and they will take in the negative and reject the positive. So somebody was promoting, pro-family, like traditional family unit, and pro-God and Christian, being a strong Christian, and having good morals and being responsible in certain ways. And that was being rejected by the Democratic Party, by their base and by the politicians and just overall in general. And to me, the Democratic Party wasn't always like that in my lifetime, at least. They didn't seem so obvious that way when I was in the 90s growing up, and, in the 80s a little bit. I knew about politics, but the 90s mainly. But I think it's more than anything now, it's the more they try to remove God from the country, the more we're going to see this radical, nasty, negative behavior. And I just can't be a part of that. I'm sorry. In God we trust. This is America. This country was built on God's name. You know what I mean? And the reason why the Constitution, to me, it works so well because if you look at it, it speaks a lot of what the Bible speaks of in the Ten Commandments and just the laws that God gave in the Bible. It follows like the Constitution. You tell we got those rules from that good book, and it's just needs to be here, needs to be in the country, needs to be a part of the country in some way, shape, or form. And when you kneel down the anthem, that to me is not just a disrespect to our country, but disrespect to the Almighty, man, who created this country. This is the last in the Bible. In terms of the Bible, this is the last great nation in the history of the world is America. So it is definitely God's country. So with that said, the last and final one, number 10, is they publicize COVID. And I want to say this one last. I want to say the best for last sometimes, but this is not best like this is a good thing, but best in terms of I'm dealing with this the most being in New York. You guys know I'm in Brooklyn, but it's New York City, Manhattan's right there. And it's all 5 boroughs, it's all, except for Staten Island, which is Republican. All the boroughs are strongly Democrat, very blue. And upstate is red, crazy that sounds, but all the 5 boroughs except for one is very blue. And they have so many people condensed there that they determine the, future when it comes to politics, when it comes to the state. So the first thing I said, though, when COVID happened is I did a video, as you guys remember, the guys watched me. As soon as COVID hit, I did a walk and talk, and I had no mask, no gloves. I did my statement I love to say, faith over fear. I'm not going to do mask and gloves because I don't trust the media, and I don't trust China. So I already from day one was like, I'm hesitant to do what they say. But the Democrat Party did what Cuomo did, I saw from immediately was that I said, but on first video when I talked about it, what I immediately said was, okay, this is not a time Democrats or Republicans to be divided. This is united we stand. We got to be united as a country right now. So the number one thing we cannot do is politicize this. We cannot politicize this. And to me, that's what the first thing the Democrats did was they politicized this whole issue. And that's, you can see it from the beginning with Cuomo when he was talking about he didn't get the ventilators from Trump and they need more help with the hospital setup and everything like that. And then they found a warehouse with the ventilators and he was like, oh, those are for just emergency reasons only. But he was just lying. It was just because he's playing politics. Election was coming up at the time, so he was already in political mode. So, you saw that situation happen. You saw, them putting on people, doctors coming out saying they're putting people on ventilators when they're purposely misdiagnosed, being told to misdiagnose patients, say they have COVID so they can put them on ventilators, and that's a 30% survival rate, and that's playing politics. You had Cuomo putting COVID victims in nursery homes here in New York, took his mother out before he did it, of course, but after he took his mother out, he put COVID victims in these nursery homes, and it killed a lot of patients and a lot of people at the nursery homes. And a lot of people's family members died because of that. And that's all for politics to pad the numbers. Look how many people died from COVID. Look what happened in New York. We're in this war zone. And I remember it was so crazy here in New York. People were calling me, family members, friends, stressed. Like, oh my gosh, Chris, are you okay? Oh my gosh, people it sounds like, because they're thinking like people just dropping dead everywhere in New York at that time. So that's why I did my Film Your Hospital video when I went to a local hospital and showed all the ambulances sitting there, nobody rushing, nobody looking like they can panic. And I did that not to put the hospital on blast, but to show people if we were in a war zone right now, like you think we are, would there be just ambulances sitting here, EMS sitting here, not doing anything? Wouldn't that be people? You see people rushing in and out of the hospital. You'll see patients coming in and out, stuff. Line to the hospital, stuff. So anything that would show distress. And Trump did anything he can. He got the ventilators over to him, Cuomo in New York. He got that, Central Park. They had like a temporary hospital set up with just tents, just because in case they need like patients that were over, too many patients in the hospital, they can go there. And guess what? It was pretty much empty, and they took it down pretty quickly. So it was not that serious, but the left, they politicized it, and that is just the big issue, and that just messed up New York. It's destroying New York. I went out to Manhattan yesterday, and it was a ghost town. This is Times Square area, Manhattan, ghost town. Nothing going on. I've never seen New York City like that, and especially not on New Year's. It was just, this is what happened in New York. There's a record number of New Yorkers leaving, and one of the main reasons why is how Cuomo, Mobster Cuomo, as I like to call him, and communist mayor, communist de Blasio, and they are pretty much destroying this state. And you look at Gavin Newsom in California, the same thing. And if you look at the southern states, they're pretty much up and running. Florida's up and running. Georgia, I went to Florida 3 times, Georgia once. They are totally different, different planet when I go down there compared to how it is in New York. And California looks like they're doing the same thing. And any leftist governed state is dealing with these issues. So this the way they're treating COVID, they politicized it, and they really just to try to make Trump look bad, try to affect his presidency. And this is just insane to me. So that is my 10th reason to walk away from the Democratic Party in 2021. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you, everybody. So much. Before I forget, let me go ahead and said. I want to say this, guys, to you before I forget, is I want to ask as well, what is your top 10 list? So I know you guys got a top 10 list of 10 reasons why to walk away from the Democratic Party. So I want to hear your top 10. Please, in the comment section, put your top 10 for me. I want to hear what you guys have to say. And you don't have to put a top 10. If you just have 5, and you think that's plenty, and that's all you put your top 5 on there. I just did a top 10 myself, but you can do whatever you like. But yep, give me your opinions. I want to see what you guys have to say. And one more thing, this 2021 big year. I want to remind everybody, Paul Joseph Watson here, with the conservatism is a new counterculture. We are the new counterculture. We are the new movement. Conservatism. Just remember that in 2021, everybody out there, patriots, keep fighting for the country. Keep doing what you're doing. We got this, January 6th is going to be a big day in D.C. Can't wait to see you guys there. Let's get Trump back in office. Let's get these 2 Senate seats in Georgia. And let's move this country forward, because we know under the hands of a Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, leftist-controlled House and Senate, this country's over, and to my doubt, might be the end of the world, God forbid. But real talk. So, everybody out there listening, God bless everybody out there listening, and God bless the United States of America. Peace out.